In the U.S., Robert, they're going the corporate route, correct? I mean, Biden has said that he wants to get all the federal employees vaccinated, but even there, it seems very mixed up. I don't have a clear picture as to what exactly the policy is there, if they've implemented anything. But I think the plan is to go the corporate route, even though you have people like DeSantis in Florida who's saying, no, if any company requires the shot, then you're going against his mandates. But even there, even in the U.S., you don't have a real clear strategy, do you, as to what's going on? Even with, I'm not even sure what was the ruling on the moratorium and all that with the rent and the Supreme Court. Was that resolved, and then the CDC came out and they said no, it's indefinite. I mean, it seems like even in the U.S., there's a lot of mixed signals being put out there.
No doubt. I mean, sadly, back at the beginning of the 20th century, the nation that led the world into the idea that the state can control the human being for the benefit of the public good and the public health was the eugenics movement of the United States, which spread all the way across Europe. The U.S. and the U.K. being the two most culpable in terms of originating the idea for it. And then, people like Hitler and the Nazis just took it to its logical conclusion. But, when Hitler was looking for a legal or moral authority to do eugenics, to do their medical experimentation under the Nazi regime, he always cited the United States, and in particular, most sadly, the Supreme Court of the United States, which had fully embraced eugenics. So we have these old legal precedents from the eugenics era, the 1905 Jacobson decision that said you could fine someone if they don't take a vaccine, the 1927 Buck v. Bell decision that said you could do forced sterilization on poor women. And forced sterilizations and involuntary sterilizations continue to take place in the United States all the way up until 1979. And then the famous Korematsu decision, which was just an extension of the prior two, which said, you can actually just lock people up on the grounds of forced detention camps during a time of emergency, in that case war, based solely on their ancestry. And so we had little glimpses of that during the anti-Russian obsession of the Trump administration, where the chief counsel for the Senate Intelligence Committee told me that they wanted to know all of my friends, all of my clients' friends or family members that may be within 3 degrees of Russian ancestry. And I remember telling her I thought Korematsu was overturned. But so that's the mindset mentality that is coming back. In some of these cases, a lot of us thought were dead. Should be dead. These are, I call it the trilogy of infamy, the Jacobson, Buck, and Korematsu decisions, because they were morally horrendous. Anybody who watches a documentary on some of the victims of those forced sterilizations can't be but moved, or just read the horrendous language used by 8 Supreme Court justices in that decision in 1927 and not be morally horrified. These are people that would be quite at home in the Nazi Party medical eugenics Dr. Mengele movement. And so, but yet we had the University of Indiana cite it as a basis, say that Buck v. Bell is still good law in America. And since they can do forced sterilizations, apparently, they still believe they can do forced vaccinations. And so we're seeing it at every level. So the Biden administration, the Defense Department apparently is going to announce that they intend to force any member of the military to take the vaccine. The Biden administration has announced a loose intention, but it's not yet clarified in policy, that every federal government employee will be required to take the vaccine. And then you have various state governments, including Governor Newsom, announce that they're intending to potentially do a statewide mandate. You have a range of city and county governments, L.A., San Francisco, New York City, talking about not only vaccine mandates, but vaccine mandate segregation. It's going to be kind of a new form of Jim Crow, and it will literally look like Jim Crow, given the demographics of who are choosing not to take the vaccine to this point and who are. Indeed, if you look at the eugenics movement, it targeted the poor, immigrants, and minorities. Well, disproportionately, the people negatively impacted by vaccine mandates are poor, immigrants, and minorities. Maybe that's a coincidence. Maybe it isn't. But it's definitely terrifying from those of us who are very civil rights oriented, civil liberties oriented, and medical freedom oriented, and think the eugenics movement was one of the most morally horrifying movements in the history of the Western world. And then on top of that, this looks coordinated. Out of the blue, big major corporations all almost simultaneously announcing vaccine mandates. And, whether it's Disney or Walmart or Tyson Foods, a wide range of industries all across the country saying they're going to mandate it. And then the big question is, what exemptions are present? So, like in like in the UK, people dig in, they find exemptions, they assert those. A lot of the companies are pulling back, at least some of them so far. So the footballers can see their games live.